Show, your number one community building show in the world. Every Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. CST, live on Facebook and YouTube. Join us as we discuss pertinent issues that relates to you and I with your host, Alinko. You're listening to the Progressive Mind Show, your number one community building show in the world. Every Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. CST, live on Facebook and YouTube. Join us as we discuss pertinent issues that relates to you and I with your host, Alinko.
Very talented young people who have decided to follow.
Then another year it starts again. Well, this is different.
We should definitely be talking to these wonderful people. Once again, we urge you to share the feed on Facebook.
Hi there, I'm Faida, and today we're going to be talking about the African diaspora in Mexico.
Whether UK likes it or not, I have to leave this country.
I became a member and a chief of the Vice Lord all in one day.
All these guys, winds are out of the north at Midway Airport.
His father.
Rice and beans. Okay, kids, we have had to come to an end of this beautiful set.
It's not about this.
This is the inside account of the week that brought the Rainbow Nation to its knees.
Right, essentially trying to inculcate into this. Hello, everyone. This is the Progressive Mind Show. We are excited to be coming your way. Today is October 26th, 2022, and it is a month of October. Month of October. We're getting closer to the end of the year. November is around the corner. We want to take a moment to get to Captain Mike's segment going. When we come back, we will talk to the leaders within the African diaspora community. So today's topic is African diaspora leaders connecting the African diaspora leaders, bringing the conversation home. Reason why we chose this is that we believe that as African or as leaders, it's very, very important and necessary that we begin whatever charity that we have conversations about starts from our home, starts from us. But not only in that context, we will also be looking at how the African diaspora or Africans, continental Africans living in America relate to other ethnic groups, other races, some of our challenges and whatnot. So stay tuned. This one will be very educative as usual. We will take Captain Mike's segment. Once we come back, the show will continue. Captain Mike, I'm sure you have the updates for us. Please go ahead.
Oh, absolutely. Well, we're looking at a pretty decent week. Right now, 55 degrees at Midway Airport. Winds are out of the north at just about 6 miles an hour. And we're going to get down to about a low of about 45 degrees. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's going to happen through the rest of the week. So, yeah, tonight it'll get down to about 45 degrees. Winds are going to switch out of the west, 10, 15 miles an hour. Tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, mid-50s. We're going to have some light winds out of the east. Not bad. Other than a chance of rain Sunday night into Monday, we're going to have a pretty good week next week. We're going to be above our average high, which is about 60 degrees. So Tuesday and Wednesday, definitely get out there You're going to have a nice week, other than a little bit of rain late Sunday and early Monday. Sports tonight, we have the Bulls are going to be at home facing the Indiana Pacers. And health and fitness report. Let's talk about 5 ways we can lower our risk of heart disease and breast cancer, because this is, once again, Breast Cancer Month. 1, the biggest way we can reduce our risks, maintain a healthy weight. 2, move. Get out there and move. Get at least 150 minutes a week of moderate exercise, moderate aerobic exercise, walking around. The biggest problem we have nowadays is sitting. Don't sit around too much. At least get up once an hour and walk around. Try to get that blood flowing. 3, no binge drinking. I know. At least try to limit yourself to 1 to 2 drinks a day. 4, get screened. Go to your healthcare professionals or your doctor and get your blood pressure checked, and also get a mammogram. The Cancer Society recommends getting a mammogram starting at about age 40. And 5, eat well, which sounds good to me. Diet is a huge part of our health. Choose a variety of fruits and vegetables and whole grains rather than refined grains. Try to limit your sugar and avoid processed meats. A 2020 analysis in the Journal of Nutrients found that people who followed a Mediterranean diet, which focuses on vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, olive oil, whole grains, and fish, they had a lower risk of dying from just about every cause out there, including cardiovascular disease. So follow these 5 tips and let's try to stay healthy, and we'll see you next week. And with that, Tina, back to you.
I think you're on mute. The host is on mute.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, I have been on mute for a second. My apologies, Captain Mike. Thank you once again for. We have a co producer today, Dr. Kula. She's going to help me with the producing. But Captain Mike, really appreciate the updates. We're looking forward to speaking with you next week. Have a wonderful evening, bro.
Oh, also, my wife wants to know if she can get a mute button for me.
Tell her Dr. Kula is working on that.
Okay, next week.
All right, bro. Have a wonderful evening.
Take care.
Okay, so we're excited to be talking to these brilliant individuals on the show. My name is Alinko. This is the Progressive Mind Show. Here is where we build our communities through dialogues. Feel free to share the feed once you come on the feed, whether on Facebook and on YouTube. We are also live on Twitter. This evening, we want to talk about this great guest, and I want to go straight to my guest. Give me a second. Let me pull my information up here. So to the right, we have, I'm just going to go here. We have our guest on the screen. So Dr. Clarice Ford Cooler, she is a CEO of Providence Providence Preservation Foundation and college, and also a college professor. Thank you so much for joining the conversation this evening.
Mm-hmm. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And then next to her okay, let's go to Vivian. She's not. Mrs. Vivian Ayafor. She's probably a doctor. She'll let us know in a little bit. But Mrs. Vivian Ayafor is a political and human rights advocate. She's also a PR officer for the African Women PAC, which is TOPAC. Thank you so much, Vivian, for joining the feed this evening.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you good. And then last on the bill is the men from, they're all from Atlanta. So I was going to say the men from Atlanta, but they're from. But Baker is here. Mr. Baker Kabanda. He is a maverick influencer. He's a maverick, an influence architect, super connector, and also an author. Brother, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me.
Awesome. So that was just a little brief background of who you are. But let's start with Dr. Cooler. Apart from what we just read about you, in a nutshell, can you give us a little background?
Whew. Okay. All right. So besides the fact that I am a college professor, Yes, I am the CEO of Providence Preservation Foundation. I'm also an author. I write children's books. I write curriculum. That's actually my background is curriculum. I have a film production company, so I do films mostly about history, social message type films. I've had a couple that were on television before. So I do a lot of that kind of work. My goal really is to spread life in the community, in the African communities, especially those here in the diaspora. I like to spread the word of how we can connect African Americans with the continent. So that's one of my biggest things that I do now. I'm also a parent. I have a set of twins, and I also help with my nieces as they're being raised. Let's see what else. I'm a youth director. I teach dance. I do a lot of different things. So, but my major thing really is right now, what I'm focused on is really pushing the agenda for Africa, for those of us who are in the diaspora. How do we put our minds together collectively and do something great on the continent? That is what I'm looking at this moment.
Very, very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing. Mrs. Vivian.
Thank you so much. And thanks again for having me. I am a mother, a wife, and I am huge in politics. I am huge in activism and civil rights. Came from Cameroon, migrated into the United States in late 2000, and have lived in the state of Georgia since then. I'm an entrepreneur. I plan and execute events from corporate to personal, and I work with almost all the Democratic campaigns in the state of Georgia, because a few years ago, I had a calling to get involved, very involved in politics. And moving here, I had no desire for politics. Yes, I am a law graduate, criminal justice and political science. But it's ironical that I didn't like politics because of the kind of politics we practice in Africa, right? So coming here, I discovered that was my calling. And if you have a love for social justice and human rights, then definitely you will get into politics. So that's what I do. That's what I love to do. And what else do I say? You said I'm a doctor. I've taken that. I have got that title. Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. Mr. Baker.
Following after the ladies, I don't know. I'm a father. Since they've been bragging that they're mothers, I'm a father too. So a beautiful baby girl. She's just made 1 year and 9 months. So I'm still fresh, getting my feet wet. I guess I need to get some notes from Dr. Kula. I'm an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur, very passionate about helping the youth, particularly. I mean, Africa is a continent with the youngest population around the world.
Absolutely.
And one of the most important things that we need to look into is how are we going to employ this youth? Because definitely the jobs available are not enough. I know we send back money from the diaspora, but we need to teach these people how to fish for themselves. And most importantly, we need to create an enabling environment for them so that they can be able to, tap into their entrepreneurial genius.
Okay.
So I'm an entrepreneur and a community leader, not only in the Ugandan community here in Atlanta, Georgia, but in the African community. Very, very passionate about seeing how African people come together to elevate ourselves as a people, socially, politically, and economically.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You've all expressed your interest, your passion for politics, which is very admirable, and I can respect that, because I too believe that is the most important conversation that everyone should pay attention to, and if possible, be involved in, because every facet of our life is governed and influenced by politics. It does not matter what you do, from where you sleep, where you eat, what you drink, and even the air you breathe. Of course, that God gives that to us, but we have the potential to pollute our air, and so politics guides us in every facet, and so very, very important. So thank you all for sharing. And so let's look at the issue that some of the things that we've been grappling about. So, Brother Baker, you are from the Ugandan community.
Yes, I am.
And you said you've lived in Atlanta for
in Atlanta for 7 years now.
7 years. And is there like a formal Ugandan community?
Yes, we do have a formal community here
okay.
in Atlanta. Yeah.
And I'm assuming you embark on festivals. I mean you would hold festival every year and things like that, right?
We do have social gatherings that pull together people. You know how the American setup is. Everybody's busy. They're on the hamster wheel, right? So we do have social gatherings, maybe independence, maybe gatherings where we get the kids to get together to know a little bit about their culture. Those who have been born and raised here, never been to the continent. So yes, we do have gatherings of that sort.
Awesome. Just like we do in Chicago here. And so I just wanted to make sure it was the same thing. The president of the Ugandan community, I think the immediate past, he's probably, the immediate past, if not, is a good friend of mine, David Matanda. I don't know if you know.
I know Dennis Matanda.
Yes, David Matanda.
Yeah.
And so we're very, very good friends. We've worked together on different occasions and the different community events. So thank you. When you say you are an influence connector, what's the meaning of
that? Essentially, I'm one of those people who believe that social capital is the currency of the 21st century, even more than just the finances themselves. Who you know matters more than what you know, and matters more than the amount of money that you have. There are things that money can't buy. So if you have the right social network, you can be able to move mountains. If you know the right people in the political sphere, if you know the right people in the economic sphere, if you know the right people in the social spheres, you can be able to accomplish quite a lot. So I'm big on networking, and that's how I get into platforms such as these, that's how I meet people like Dr. Kula, who is Liberian, people like Vivian, who's from Cameroon. So I'm out and about trying to connect the dots. How do we look for each other? How do we leverage each other's strengths and weaknesses? And by the way, it's not just the African people. We stretch it to the African Americans and the Caribbean. Often we forget about the Caribbean, we forget about Latin America. There are over 100 million Black people in Brazil. So I'm always out there trying to figure out what can we learn from each other, how can we leverage each other's strengths, and how can we help each other in the different challenges that are facing those different communities.
Awesome. Great. Vivian, are you a leader in the Cameroonian community in Atlanta?
Absolutely. Okay.
Would you say would you say Cameroonian Association president, organizer, if you may clarify?
I am leading about 3 Cameroonian associations, both cultural and social. I am the vice president of Ngemba. Ngemba Association is more of a clan cultural group, which incorporates different villages into one. So in this association, we try to keep our traditional and cultural values because our kids these days need such grooming, right? Because we're eventually going to hand over to our kids. And if we do not teach them these values that we grew up in, taught by our parents, they will grow up lost in this society. So,
So you happen to be one of the presidents of the associations, and so are you familiar with Bastien here in Chicago?
Come again, please.
Destine. He's the president of the Cameroonian community, one of the major Cameroonian groups in Chicago.
Okay.
Not
Yet.
That's fine. And I think
I'm looking forward to get
right.
to meet those leaders.
Absolutely. And that's the purpose of this platform. So we can make these connections, right? And it's very, very important. So thank you for sharing. Dr. Kula, I'm assuming that there's a huge Liberian community in Atlanta and you play a big role in that in that.
I have in the past, as far as the association itself. Right now, I do most of my work through Providence Preservation Foundation, which is a foundation that spearheads. We spearheaded, let's say, the Year of the Diaspora, which was the 200-year celebration of Liberia. This year marks 200 years of the African Americans first going to the coast of West Africa, and then subsequently into Liberia, which is how Liberia got started, if you will. So they got there. There were people already on ground. They connected with those people, and there you have Liberia. So my goal is to connect Liberians in the diaspora with other African groups and African Americans, and to take them to Liberia so that they can, have those experiences, whether it's through investments, whether it's through tourism, whatever it is. The goal is to connect Africans this year in the bicentennial year, because that's what Liberia represents. Liberia was founded as a safe haven for all Black people, all people of color, no matter where you came from, the Caribbean, the United States of America, Congo, Ghana, Nigeria, back in those days, all of the countries came to Liberia. And so the goal this year is to bring all of those people back as we celebrate Liberia's 200-year anniversary. So I spread the good news of the history. I also talked about the climate as far as tourism is concerned. So pretty much that's what I've been doing in this community. I teach dance in the community to young people who are deserving of learning and about our culture, our cultural dances, also ballet, any other types of dance that they're interested in. So that's pretty much what I do. But like I said, my number one goal is to bring people back home to Africa.
Okay. As community leaders or folks that have been trying to get their communities going, can we talk about the challenges, first of all, that you have encountered, and how are we, how I would say you guys, able to override and overcome these challenges? Because like we need to organize, we need to come together as African people and be part of the process, both the economic, social, and political process in America, and also aligning ourselves with fellow Blacks. So what has been the challenge for you, brother? Let me start with Baker.
Speaking from a Ugandan perspective, one of the biggest challenges that I've observed is when people get over to the United States, there's a cultural assimilation that happens. So people end up veering towards becoming American, and they kind of forget that they're African. They kind of forget their African heritage. So there's always a battle between maintaining a balance between fitting into the American culture and not forgetting the African culture. So that's something that we've been battling. And when it comes to kids who have been born of Ugandan parents but born here in the diaspora, they are more American than they are African, right? So we need to, create those sentiments, create that love for a continent that most of them have not even been to yet, right? They've been born here, they've been raised here. So that's one of the challenges that we've been facing. In terms of coming together as a community of Ugandans, of course, in the Western world, it's all about work. Work takes precedence over almost everything. So people are always too busy. So being able to get people under one roof to discuss matters pertinent to their home country, matters pertinent to their continent, that is always something that is kind of a challenge. But of course, we do get opportunities such as Independence Day celebrations and days of the sort to be able to break bread and try to figure out what's happening back home, because we always, of course, follow up on the politics back in our mother countries, just to figure out what's going on, what can we do. But at the same time, we're also following up with Joe Biden and his policies. So we are cut in between the two.
Okay.
But, normally when we meet, we tend to, we have conversations around those, and we come up with solutions to see how best we can be able to assist home and here in the diaspora as well.
I was going to ask if you have an idea of the population of Ugandans in Atlanta, but maybe something, if that's the case, you can provide us with that information. But let me ask the same question. I want to go to Dr. Kula with the same question. Having been a leader and trying to organize, what has been your challenge? Of course, there are challenges. So, what are the challenges? And yeah, and how are you able to?
There's quite a few. I think for me personally, what I've noticed, bringing Africans together, Black people as a whole, itself is a challenge. I think a lot of times either there's a trust factor or there's something going. If you look at some of the communities that have thrived in America, like the Chinese or the Mexicans or the different groups of people who have come and have thrived, who now open stores together, or they decide we're going to buy up the entire neighborhood, or we're going to buy up, you know what I'm saying, put our businesses there. They're able to work together a little easier than I find we as Africans. It's very hard for us to work together. Trying to convince even people just from Liberia to come with us this year, as we were last year, going into this year, as we were traveling to Liberia, we're traveling to do whatever it is that we want to do as a group, has been a little challenging, because I do believe that there is an issue with us coming together as a people. And I don't know, maybe because Africa is such a big continent and there's so many different groups, I don't know what it is, but somewhere there's a disconnect sometimes I find within the groups, So like, for example, when I met Baker, it was so easy to talk to Baker. It wasn't like, oh my God, you meet people like Baker from other countries, you meet people, even like Miss Vivian, I'm talking with you guys now, I feel free. I don't feel, you know what I mean? But sometimes when you're with other people from some of our other countries, or even within our same groups, it's hard. Because there is an element of mistrust. And I don't know, I know some of this stems from the whole slave trade situation, because I've heard like African Americans will say, oh, the West Africans sold us into slavery. Or another group might say, oh, I did business with somebody in Nigeria and they were not legitimate. Oh, I did business in Ghana and it didn't work out, that kind of stuff. We need to let go of all those negative things and concentrate on the positive things, right? Which is our coming together. Because if Africa comes together, you know how strong we would be. As a continent, as a people. So we've got to find that ground, that common ground. When we come together, we say, even if we don't like each other, we're coming together for the common good of our countries first, and then the common good of all of Africa. Because I'm telling you, as a unit, boy, we are strong. Because I look at the gold in Ghana. I look at the diamond mines in Liberia. I look at so many different things in so many different countries. Because even in Nigeria, the oil is plentiful. So you've got all these things. If we put all of those resources together, we would be unstoppable.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what we need to concentrate on.
So you said some things that I would like to come back to, which is these conversations that are on the streets among the black diaspora, where some people say, oh yeah, you sold us. Others say, yeah, we didn't sell you, and all of that. These are legitimate concerns.
Right.
And a lot of times, they are the reasons that prevents our coming together as a bigger Black group. And so it becomes very pertinent that we address these things, because inwardly, as Black people, we are hurting. It doesn't matter which part of the Black diaspora you belong to. There's a lot of hurt, and we have to have open conversations about them. And so I will revisit some of the things that you mentioned. But Vivian, same question for you. I'm sure you've had challenges. And then before that, Dr. Kula, in terms of people, Africans, finding challenges in Africans coming together, or just talking to them and getting them involved in some of these things that you do you find this in the very highly educated Africans, or the not so educated who are, just regular folks trying to do menial jobs and survive, or in both?
That's a good question. I have to say, I do see it in both. It may be a little better with the people who may be so-called educated, but once that educated person has been burned by somebody or one member of our group, then I find that they tend to take the same attitude, like, no, this is not going to work out. They're going to take advantage of me again. It's always coming from a place of hurt.
Right.
Or I've been here before and somebody has done this to me and now I'm on the fence. You see
Good.
what I'm
Now,
saying?
right.
So
And
I think
sometimes,
both.
and sometimes it's not even from hurt at all, because I too have encountered that
Yeah.
here in Chicago. Highly educated folks who don't want to have anything to talk. They don't have anything to do with Black Africans, let alone crossing borders, and getting to the African diaspora with African Americans or Caribbeans. Zero. So, and super intelligent guys who, in some engineers, some have their own businesses. They created it from scratch. They have their MBAs. So it's incredible. But we'll come to that. Vivian, same question for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a huge question. Trust me, I've been wondering, and this is one of the aspects one of the huge topics that we just came from discussing on Twitter Spaces, right?
Okay.
Why do we Africans not trust each other? What is it that makes us hate one another? So my number one thing is colonialism. That's what we were taught. That's how we were taught to reason. And that's one of the reasons why the colonizer thrives over us as a people. You can only thrive over a people or make people so inferior when you divide them, when you conquer them, when you make them feel less of human beings. And I think that's what's happening with us Africans. When I migrated over here in the United States, and after living in Georgia for so long, I discovered that, like my sister Doug said, it's very easy to get along with another nationality, with someone from Nigeria, with someone from Liberia, with someone. It is so difficult to deal with someone from Cameroon, right? And then you come to discover that even the little groups that we create to empower one another, to strengthen one another, after a certain period of time, those little groups break up into multiple factions. Yes, it is troubling. It becomes a problem when you realize that even as a small group of people, you can't still function. We cannot dialogue. We cannot sit down and talk about our problems without insulting one another, without splitting into multiple different factions. Why is that? Why is it so difficult for us to get along?
Okay.
Why is it so difficult for us Africans to promote one another, to see that your sister or your brother is doing something great, and you support them, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we need to dissect, because even talking on Twitter Spaces, this has led to so many conflicts that we're facing in Africa. So many. It is not for any big stuff. It is because we cannot get along.
True.
But we need to start finding solutions. We need to start finding reasons why the West has been able to. Doug mentions a lot of resources that we have. As we fight each other, as we hate each other, the colonizer comes and grabs all these natural resources.
Right.
How come we don't realize this?
Yeah, I think you asked brilliant questions and you've given us a great feedback, great response. Let me say thank you. As you were asking, why is it so hard for us to unite? I was looking, as I saw Baker looking at you intensely, as though I have the answers. I have the answers. Baker, do you want to respond to that?
That's a very complicated question, but again, I'm going to reiterate what you already said. This stems from the colonial era, whereby when Chancellor Bismarck and his cronies sat down in 1884, they created boundaries across Africa, right? So we see ourselves as the other. I'm going to give you an example. Even just in Cameroon, Cameroon is one country that was colonized by two different superpowers. That's the British and the French. Now, this is in the same country, but they have been at each other's throats forever, right? Within the same country. So we need to wake up and realize that this does not work in our best interest as Black people. So the whole divide and conquer approach has been very beneficial to the conquerors, aka the colonizers. But to us as a people, we need to realize that we are stronger together, and that we need to look at each other as brothers and sisters.
Yes.
Right? If we look at each other as brothers and sisters, and look at each other as people suffering under the same heavy weight of the colonizer, because I'll tell you what, for example, here in the US, we have something to do with police brutality and everything. When a cop pulls you over, they don't know whether you're Jamaican or
exactly.
Are you guys struggling to hear Baker?
No.
Okay. It must be me. Sorry, Baker, go ahead. I wanted to make sure.
Okay. So we need to realize that we might be different shades of black, but we're all black, ultimately. And if you look around, we are all at the bottom of the socio-economic pyramid. Everywhere you go, Black people are at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
It's not just Nigerians, it's not just Jamaicans. We are all at the bottom. And the only way we come from the bottom is if we work synergistically, if we work together. You asked me a question about how many people are in, how many Ugandans are in Atlanta, for instance. In Atlanta, it's a very small number. It's about 200 people, right? Okay. So that's a very minuscule number to be able to do anything that is substantial in as far as pushing any agenda. Right. The only chance we stand is if we stand together with the Cameroonians, with the Nigerians, with the Liberians. If we come together, now we have a unified voice. And thank God we have created something with that type of semblance, and we call it One Voice Africa here in Atlanta, where different Africans, people of different African nationalities come together on the same platform and try to push the African agenda in unison. So that's where we need to be looking towards.
Thank you all so much for responding wonderfully. I think that you've all been brilliant points. You have been watching the Progressive Mind Show, and if you just joined us, we are talking. These are African diaspora leaders, so we are connecting the dots, and we are also trying to bring the conversation home, because a lot of times we talk about these things, but in our privacy, in the offices, in our homes. But I think it's high time that we bring it home in terms of having public decorum like this, having public dialogue such as these about the things that are preventing or these challenges that we face as Africans. We've been having these issues back on the continent. And for some reason, even though we are here in a very developed country, we're still struggling with that. And more so struggling even to connect with fellow Blacks that helped build this great country that we are all in. And so what more important conversation should the African be having now than these types that we engage in? So if you are joining us now, this is a discussion. And if you have been watching, we encourage that you share the feed so that fellow Africans, fellow Blacks, and everybody else that is interested in building our communities and making our society a better place can partake in this and also be inspired. We'll go back to our guest and listen to some more wisdom on this. So from what you've all shared, begs the question, or it takes us to this this particular discussion points that I want us to talk about: the power of continental Africans in the diaspora. Okay. And so how do we begin to leverage that? Because we remit home, and all that. So let's look at financially or capital wise. And I'll start with Dr. Cooler. How powerful are African is the African diaspora, but specifically continental Africans here? How powerful are we in that space, and how can we leverage that financial or capital power to make an influence back on the continent?
We are far more powerful than we think or believe. Because for Liberia specifically, most of the monies are through remittances, right? That they have there in Liberia, because that's all we do. We work here and we send money back home. You have a mom there, she's sick. You have you're doing a building project. You have a brother that has to go to school. You have nieces and nephews you're putting through school. So you're constantly sending money. There's always something. You know what I mean? So our power, it is more than what we think. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It goes beyond just the money that we are sending. It goes beyond the money that we are sending. Yeah.
Beyond. And therefore, it almost leads one to believe that we should have more power on the ground than we do. But is it that we don't have that power, or we have it, we just don't know we have it? You get what I'm saying? Right. We should be able to go home, open businesses, invest in our countries, do a little bit more than what some of us are doing. Because like somebody said earlier on when the conversation started, a lot of us sit here, I think it was Baker, we have our kids here, we do everything here, and it's almost like we forget that we're Africans. At the end of the day, you're still Africans. There are many people in many different countries that I visited where you go back and you see what they've done with their monies as they work in America, even Mexico, Puerto Vallarta. I went there not too long ago, looking at the tourism and all those different things. But I saw where a lot of those people work here and they took the money back home. They built. It's not saying that all African countries are not doing it. Some are, like Nigeria, Ghana. A few of our countries are. Liberia is starting to do. I know Uganda. Different people are doing different things. But what I'm saying is, we would be even stronger if we made that our priority. That I'm here as an African, but I'm going to work and I'm going to build my country up. I'm not going to forget where I came from. I'm not going to forget the poverty level in that country. I may go back and open up a school. I may put a clinic in my village. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Those are the kinds of things that we can do with that buying power, because we do have that power.
Right. We do have that power. Is that the what you just talked about? You think that is also the reason why Africans get so drowned and fixated on making money and finding money to the point where we don't want to engage in anything else. Actually, we may not even have time for anything else. Do you think that's one of the main, because we have so much responsibility at home? And we've also seen abject poverty. To be honest, Africans, we are escaping. A lot of us here escaped poverty. We've seen the extreme parts of poverty. And so some of us come here and we come here because we don't want to deal with that again. And we don't want to see our people go through that. And so that fire and hunger drives us in so many economic directions that we don't have time or want to have any community engagement. We just want to make that money, take care of ourselves, and fix these poverty issues that we have seen with our families. Do you think that is the main reason why, and even because of that also, we don't want to deal with poor communities or poor people in the African American community? Because sometimes when we see people acting, or people from the African American community, some of the ones that don't want to do anything with their lives, we're like, okay, you are here in this country and you are living a low life, and I don't want to do nothing with you, and so it influences our attitude towards them. Do you think these are real situations, Vivian?
That's a good point.
Yes, absolutely. I think migrating to the United States, we as parents, young parents, have forgotten where we came from. We've forgotten how we grew up. We've forgotten the tough love our parents gave us when we were growing up. And that's what brought us to where we are. That's what made us who we are today.
Right.
I have discovered that bringing up kids here is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult because of the environment, because of the nature of the nature of the environment we find ourselves, the type of things kids watch on TV, the type of things that are told kids in school. Some of them are good, some of them are detrimental to the kids. So when you as a parent leave your kid at the mercy of either learning from the parent, learning from the public, or picking up those negative aspects from school, what do you expect? I'll give you all an example. When I had my first son and was really struggling, right? There was this thought of and that's a new trend for us parents, transporting our kids from the US to home base, to continental motherland, to grow up either with a relative or mother or auntie or older sister. I thought about that, but one thing that kept coming to me is the fact that why would I ship my child home when my mother had to bring me up? Why should I ship my child either to my mother or to my older sister or to someone else? So much by the time that child returns back here, they barely know me as a mom. And why should I have to transfer my responsibility to someone else? Is that career too important? Or is that money too important than my child? The answers are no. And this is what we face. We've realized, we've discovered that the new trend here is the fact that we have kids who are turning around and murdering their parents, right? Our own African kids have been doing this. How do we stop this? How do we fix this problem? It is easy. It is as easy as ABC. Let us as parents take our responsibilities as parents seriously.
Okay.
It will take you 5 years to wait and bring up that child, to wait and take your responsibility as a parent seriously until you are ready to go back to school. If that's what it takes, please, please, parents, wait and groom your children up properly. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Baker, I think I need you to respond to the same question, which is the question that I asked Dr. Cooler earlier, which is the financial and capital capacity of the continental African in the diaspora and our influence on the continent and its people.
In 2021, we remitted $95 billion back to the continent.
95
billion. Yeah.
Huge number.
In terms of Africans collectively in the United States.
Africans collectively in the United States remitting back to the continent.
Wow.
Yeah. There's 95 billion. And just to give you a little bit of contrast, the United States government or the US generally foreign direct investments into the continent that year were $44 billion. So we literally almost tripled the foreign direct investments from the US government. So that shows you just how powerful the African diaspora is in as far as spurring the economy of the continent. There are very many countries, especially when COVID hit, everything came to a standstill. Literally, economies of some African countries were purely thriving on remittances from people.
Remittances, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have a huge part to play from an economic standpoint, and that gives us power. That gives us leverage in as far as influencing the political layout of the land. If only we know how to harness that.
Yeah.
Right? And the second thing we need to look into is, much as remittances are amazing, but it's not sustainable. We can't just keep dishing money back and forth.
Right.
We need to take it a step higher and figure out how we can create an environment where the people on the ground can learn to fish for themselves. We can give them seed capital. We can do skills transfer. What can we teach people back home that they can be able to leverage back on the continent to be able to actually generate sustainable income?
Yeah.
You know? If you teach a man how to fish, you feed them for a lifetime.
That's right.
If you give them a fish, they eat it, and they're beggars. We need to break that cycle. And just to expand the conversation just a little bit, you touched on the African Americans. The African Americans have a spending power of $1.6 trillion.
Yeah.
And that's mind-boggling. $1.6 trillion is the GDP of Canada, and Canada is the 10th richest nation in the world.
Oh, wow.
So that is the power of the African American community. We have been misinformed. The only people that we seem to be shown are the people who are not doing well off, the people who are doing drugs, the people who are doing all this derogatory stuff that a certain class of African Americans are engaged in. But there's another class. There's another class that is thriving. They're big in technology. They're big in the financial world, and they're doing amazing things. So we need to figure out how we can network with those people and how we can harness them and drive some of that potential, both in terms of financial capital, in terms of skill set. How can we transfer that to the continent? Because at the end of the day, much as Africa, one American president referred to Africa as a shithole continent. Yes, we have our problems, but we have immense opportunities.
That's it.
Uganda just discovered gold deposits worth trillions of dollars. Worth trillions. But that needs investment, right? If we don't get the right type of investment to be able to extract those minerals, we're not going to benefit from them. If we don't set up the refineries in the local countries, well, people are going to come extract all the gold in raw form, take it for $1,000. So we have to expose these opportunities to our brothers and sisters in the diaspora. That $1.6 trillion can be put together to start up a gold refinery somewhere.
That's it.
Go to Congo and extract stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff in Liberia, there's stuff in Cameroon. We have the technology, we have the know-how, so we just need to work together, and we need to look at Africa as a place that does not only need help, but is also ripe with great opportunities that we can tap into.
Yes. Yep. Well said, Baker. Well said.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead and add your 2 cents, Dr. Kula, if you want to.
Oh, when Baker was talking, it was music to my ears. Music to my ears.
Yes.
We just had this conversation today with an African American group, which is the Atlanta Black Chamber of Commerce. So we were on there with the Liberian Chamber of Commerce, and we had the same discussion. They're trying to get some dollars to come into Liberia and invest in other African countries as well. And we were talking the exact same thing Baker just said is what we're saying. And I'm always looking at, okay, we're letting the Chinese people come because China is about to take over Africa. Let's keep it real. They've been going into all these different African countries and doing some developments and this one and that one. But what about we, the people of that continent? What are we going to do? We have the same power. We have the same monies. He just mentioned the trillions of dollars that the African Americans have. And many of us are Africans, but we're under the same umbrella as the African Americans once we're here in America. So that means we are too a part of that, right? So then we need to take those monies and go find that sustainable business on ground that will give the young people a job, get them off the street, bring the crime rates down in some of our areas, because we all know that an idle mind is a devil's workshop. If the young people of Africa have nothing to do, they're going to find some things to do, okay? And those things may not be what we want them to do. However, if we empower them, then their future is brighter. If we empower them, they don't need to loot. They have jobs to get up in the morning and go to. They have something to look forward to each and every day. They can now begin to create their own families because they have jobs that can take care of their kids now. So we want to make sure that we as African, with that spending power that we have, not just sit here and open up businesses only in America, but take it to the continent and be that light, make that difference on the continent.
Thank you so much, Vivian. If you have any comments or any addition, please go ahead. If you want to.
Basically, Baker and Dr. Kula said it all. When you spoke, Baker, it was like I was almost like, let the church say amen. That is what Africa is missing out on. How come we have such huge pile of raw material, natural resources, and yet we cannot process our own natural resources? How come Cameroon and Ghana produces cocoa, and yet that cocoa is transported to Switzerland, right, where it is, changed to some really hot chocolate, and they're sent back to us, and they're sold by triple, right? And we buy them. Why can't we transform these products, right? And yet we turn around and blame our Africans for crossing the Mediterranean and dying in the ocean. Recently, of Cameroonians were deported from, I think, Guinea or Sierra Leone, and today they cannot account for them. Why would Cameroonians migrate to Guinea or Sierra Leone and they're sent back within the same
continent? Right. So, yeah, sorry, I think we're having a little lag in the feed. We'll fix this. Just bear with us. You've been listening to the Progressive Mind Show with my great guest, Dr. Kula, Baker Kabanda, and Mrs. Vivian Ayafor. I think we have her back now. Please pardon that. We would want to take a short break, but I guess the conversation is such that we just have to keep going. So, Dr. Vivian, can you hear us good now?
She's on mute.
My producer says you're on mute.
She just took it off. She's off now.
She's a good producer.
I try.
Oh man, goodness, thank you. So just to put it in context for folks who just joined us, and if you don't know what the African diaspora is, because we've been using this terminology for some time now. The African diaspora is basically, some call it Black diaspora, so Africa/Black diaspora, because some people still don't want to identify with Africa, but we're all Black people. So the Black diaspora is a bigger Black group of people that belong to the a bigger Black group, right, which comprises of Africans from continental Africans who have migrated here, African Americans who live here, and then Caribbeans who migrated here, Latinx, and then South Americans, like my brother Baker said. So that is, when you hear African diaspora or Black diaspora, that's what it stands for. And so there's a clear distinction between continental Africans. So continental Africans are Africans who live on the continent. And so just so we have the context, and for our folks who have just joined us and may not be used to these, because to be honest, the diaspora conversation just got popular perhaps after George Floyd. So I think maybe after 2019, after when George Floyd, and then everybody started getting into the conversation. Prior to that, it wasn't that popular, and so we are glad that this is a conversation that we should be having now, and we are doing that. And so, to the point that Baker made earlier, in terms of how we should connect with African Americans, because they carry that's a very powerful economic community in this entire world, on this entire globe. Black people, as you said, Baker, and all my guests have said, we seem to be struggling everywhere else. Everywhere you see Black people, even on the continent. Even though we're doing well and we're thriving. The only group of Black people who have suffered the most in our history, at least in modern history, is the African American community. They have suffered the most when it comes to Black people globally. In the same vein, they are the group of people that have achieved the most economically. I stand for correction, but this is what I believe. This is what I've observed. If anything is to go by, the figure that Baker just gave out, $1.6 trillion spending power of a group of people. That's a whole country. We're comparing it to Canada, which is the 10th richest country in the world, brother. and it has a what GDP of what 1.3 1.4 trillion.
It's up to 1.65.
1.6 thereabout. Okay,
so right there about. Yeah.
Exactly. So this becomes a great conversation. But when you guys were talking about how we have to develop Africa, and which is what we have to do, and Dr. Kula, you mentioned how the Chinese are taking over. Guess what? If you ask the average African today, both educated, non-educated, that who are you likely to partner with if you wanted to build a bridge or build a factory, build schools and hospitals, and all this infrastructure that we're trying to build, because Africa is the next place. It has a lot of potential for development. So that's why you see a lot of people going there, corporations and all of that. Who do you think that the average African is going to call for if we're to go into international bilateral trade? It's obvious, right? Baker. We either go for the Chinese or we go for the Europeans as partners.
Yeah.
Nowhere do we consider the African American.
Yeah.
How many presidents or how many businesses in Africa do you know of or have heard of that are saying, let's go to America or let's look for business partners in America or in the Black community in America, especially African Americans? No, because in our mind, in the average African's mind, when it comes to the economic success of America, they don't even exist. Like, we don't know that, to be honest. The way we were trained and the way we were informed back home, we didn't know that until we came here. And even when we're here, you have to research and study to know. Okay, so the information you just gave out is not privy to, trust me, 90% of Africans, even in this country, don't know the figure that you just gave out. Don't really recognize the power, the economic power of the African American community. And so this is what we have to do in terms of educating ourselves. Give me one more minute. I know I've been going on, but this is very important. When you talked about how, like, we've been asking the question, why are we struggling? One of the reasons why we're struggling as Africans on the continent is that, come to think of the fact that colonialism probably, or slavery, and ended colonialism ended somewhere 70 years, 60 years for some countries, give and take. For some African countries, 60, some 70 maybe. But the scholar is here, Baker will correct me if I'm wrong. To think that the people who grew up under that era with Europeans ruling us, and when we're calling European masters and we saw them better humans than us, and this is the plain truth, those people that went through that era are the ones that are ruling Africa now. These 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old, they are our ministers, our judges, our presidents. They are calling the shots. So their mind has been captured. Their mind is gone. Their mind has been colonialized to the point where there's no training. There's no finding new tricks for training.
You can't train an old dog new tricks.
Dog new tricks.
An old dog new tricks. Yes, there is not. There is no re-engineering of these leaders. And it's obvious from the way they rule, from the way they govern African countries. It's like Africa is for sale. It's like they sell African natural resources without thinking of its citizens. You mentioned Nigeria. Look at how rich Nigeria is when it comes to oil and gas. But you will see the most abject poverty on this earth in Nigeria. I'm not saying it's the most poorest country, but you will see that in Nigeria. If you know the struggle Nigerians are going through, not just Nigeria, but a lot of African countries, Cameroon, Ghana, Togo, Benin, African countries are struggling, Congo, right? And they have all the natural resources. Why is that? Because the people that are making the rules and governing are not using the resources for the benefit of the people. Because in America and these other developed countries, it didn't take the citizenry. It was the leaders. That is why we call the framers the framers. They framed this country in a way so that it can be prosperous. They set the pace for them. Singapore changed the country when Ghana got independence and was its economic was booming. Singapore didn't have what we had. Singapore hadn't seen development. They've gone past that. Malaysia came to study how Ghana uses palm oil to produce oil and soap and all of that. They're doing more than that. They've surpassed us economically. Okay, Dubai wasn't what Dubai is 50, 60 years ago. Their king, it was a desolated place, no water. It was just a desert. Their king decided that I'm going to change the narrative for my people. So it has to take leaders. And African leaders, I think most of them, because of colonialism and slavery, their mindsets is not at a place where there is no self of there's no nationality, there's no national identity, there is no, I feel like there is no even self-esteem or confidence. There's no self-esteem, to be honest, in these African leaders. A lot of these African leaders, you can tell and see from the way they govern and rule. And so they have put in measures and policies, very, very bad policies in places that has dwindled the economic process or progress of a lot of African countries, which is why you see a lot of the youth trying to escape the hardship that they've created for us. Just wanted to get this out of my chest, guys. Please go ahead. I don't know, Dr. Kula, if you want to respond to it. Okay, now Dr. Kula is muted.
I thought I hit unmute. So it's a very interesting point that you raised, because when you look at it, a lot of the leaders now are the ones that were under the colonial times. And so I think there may be some sort of correlation there, like you mentioned, between that and how some of the leaders are leading and governing, because there's no reason why the Lebanese, the Indians, the Chinese, and all those people should be enjoying what they're enjoying in Africa and we're not, right? Exactly. Because it's like you almost, in some places, almost like you're selling the country to the highest bidder, and that
absolutely.
We need to be looking at the people, and that is where it stems from. When you begin to look at the people, you do better, right? You do better because you're looking at the people. But so in a lot of countries, we need to work on that.
Definitely.
We need to work.
Definitely. African leaders, if you ask me, should be offering land, should be opening up their countries and saying African Americans, Black Americans, wherever you are, whether in America or in Canada or in the UK, you've been taken away, you've been separated away from us for centuries, come back home. Why not? There's plenty of land. More so, this is your place.
Yeah.
This is your rightful home. Why don't you give them land? We have tons of land we're not using. At the very least, they would come with their hard capital and develop the land.
And that's the narrative and the agenda that I'm pushing for this 2022, trying to get as many of our people back onto the continent to do what it is that they're supposed to do.
I know Sierra Leone is doing big in that. Sierra Leone is offering citizenship, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and Liberia, you say he's doing something like that too?
Liberia is trying. They have not started the citizenship, but believe me, I'm having those conversations with them as we speak. So yeah,
we'll follow up on that. We'll follow up on that. Even if we have to have if we have to get George Weah on this platform, we will. Which is what we do. Brother Baker, I know you wanted to comment. Go ahead.
This is an intriguing conversation.
I know we digress a little bit, but we'll come back to where we were.
No. There is no digressing. We are straight on point. The ancestors are guiding us to touch on certain things that are pertinent, that need to be brought to light. Just like I mentioned, that very few people know that the African American economy is a 1.6 trillion economy.
Yeah.
If people here in the US don't know it, imagine people back home in Africa. So that's exactly why they don't even reach out. That's one. Two, we've been brainwashed for a very long time, both overtly and covertly. One of the biggest tools that is holding us back is mass media.
Mass media, yep.
By mass media, we're looking at things like the movie industry, Hollywood, right? It projects Black people in a particular light, it projects white people in a particular light. White people are superior, Black people are inferior. White people are smart, Black people are idiots, for lack of a better word. White people are rich, Black people are poor. If you go to Google right now and you just type in a poor person, all the pictures that will pop up will be of a Black person. If you type in opulence, wealth, richness, success, all the pictures. If you type in beautiful, you're not going to see Black beautiful pictures popping up. They're going to be white people popping up. So this stuff has infiltrated us in that we also believe this stuff. A couple of years ago, they did what they call the black doll experiment. They got a bunch of kids, white kids and black kids. They got the white kids and gave them a white doll and a black doll. They asked them, which doll is pretty? They pointed at the white doll. Which one is ugly? They pointed at the black doll. Those were the white kids. They gave the same experiment to black kids. They asked them, which doll is pretty? They all pointed at the white kid, at the white doll. Which doll is bad? Which one is not pretty? They all pointed at the black doll. They are black. They're pointing at the black. At a tender age, you're groomed to know that you're inferior, you're not competent, you're not smart, and naturally that inherently affects the way you carry yourself, right? If you're in a room, I've seen situations where even African leaders, a white person comes in a room and they all stand up and give them a seat, right? I have a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine. She does a lot of support work, sending medical equipment to different African countries. And one time she sent a container full of medical equipment to the continent, right? One of the African countries that I will not mention.
Yeah.
So the container arrives. I had some equipment. Naturally, they needed a technician to help them understand how the equipment works. So she flew over the best, one of the best in the country, here in the US, to go over and help them set up everything. The person that was flown over was a Cameroonian,
okay,
an American Cameroonian. He gets over there, and the government officials are like, they contacted her and said, can't you send us a white person?
Oh my God.
You know, and very many times situations have happened where a prominent African American will go to an African country and hopefully they have a secretary who is white or an intern who escorts them or a personal assistant who is white. And when they get in the meeting, the African officials would like to hear from the assistant. You know, they don't seem to get that the black person is the boss.
Yeah.
The white person is working for me, you know. So such is the nature of the brainwashing that is affecting us. And unfortunately, unless we address this issue, because it's very insidious, it eats you like a cancer from the inside. You don't see it, you don't feel it, you know. But naturally, every time you see a white person, you believe there. I mean, in Africa, when you talk about sponsorship or whatever, the white matter complex, they look at a white person as the one who is supposed to save them, is the one who is supposed to give them money and whatever. So we have to educate our people. One, we have to leverage mass media tools. Now we have the internet. I mean, it's unfortunate Africa does not have its own mouthpiece in terms of a platform like CNN, platform like BBC. But thankfully, we have a platform such as yours. You're doing a tremendous job because we are not going to wait for politicians to do the job for us.
Yeah.
Not all politicians are leaders.
Yeah.
Right? There's a difference between being a politician and being a leader.
Yeah.
Politicians primarily are looking at the next vote. What do I do to stay in power?
Right.
What do I do? I mean, a politician is supposed to be a servant of the people because they're a public servant. But I'll tell you what, get a Nigerian governor and tell them you are a servant of the people. Hello, they'll cut you, you know, because they are bosses. So the mindset needs to shift. But that is not going to change anytime soon. So while that is still, we are working on that on the low, we as people here in the diaspora, we have a responsibility. We have to be Moses and deliver our people to the promised land.
Absolutely.
We have to take up leadership. A leader is not appointed. Martin Luther King was not voted into power. Mahatma Gandhi was not voted into power. So Alinko does not need anybody else to tell him to sell the African narrative. We need to own our story. We need to tell the world who we are, what we stand for, what we bring to the table. Only then can our esteem be elevated, and only then can we be able to achieve the kinds of things we're striving to achieve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that Vivian, yes, Dr. Kula, please go ahead if you want to add anything. But before you do that, I think we are due a commercial break. It's 30 minutes past 7 p.m. Central. You have been watching the Progressive Mind show right here in the beautiful city of Chicago. And today our topic is connecting African diaspora leaders, bringing the conversation home. So if you have been following and you are not an African, you know that these people are really talking about things going on in their home. But we also understand that we're not just Africans. We are Black people, and we all belong to the Black community in the diaspora, and our stories are the same. We are very interconnected, and our issues are the same. It just comes in different clothing. So that said, we'll take a short break. When we come back, the conversation will continue. Vivian, I'll see you, and I'm going to bring you in soon. Here at the Progressive Minds, we are looking for volunteers in the areas of social media, grant writing. We are a 501c3. So if you're a grant writer, if you know anybody who can assist us in these areas, please reach out to us at info.progressiveminds@gmail.com. info.progressiveminds@gmail.com. If you can help us with marketing, social media, video editing, production assistant, especially grant writing, please reach out to us and assist us. We'll be very grateful. Also, with the for folks who are looking to build their websites, make logos, flyers, business cards, brochures, branding, Progressive Minds Media. Progressive Minds Media offers you all the services at a very affordable rate. Please reach out to us. Same email, info.progressiveminds@gmail.com. Remember, you're watching the Progressive Minds Show. I'm your host, Alinko. African Leaders Connect is our topic today, bringing the conversation home. And I'm with my guests who are in Atlanta, and they are African leaders there in the person of Dr. Kula. You have to make sure. Baker Kabanda, who is a leader in the Ugandan community, and Mrs. Vivian, who is also very passionate and involved in community work. She's also a law. What's the difference between a law graduate and a lawyer and an attorney? Is it the same thing? Vivian, we can hear you because you're muted.
It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. Okay. But in your bio, you have worked with state people like Stacey Abrams. You still working with her?
I work with her campaign. I knock doors. I canvass for votes, and we do a lot of canvassing, door to door, phone banking, and
all of that,
all whatnot.
Okay.
It's really, really hectic and crazy, especially leading towards November 8th.
Yeah. No, thank you. So we have been, I think you missed a chunk of the, we've had a lot of fun whilst you were away. It's unfortunate. Unfortunately, I think your internet gave way. So we are grateful to have you back. But On
Thank
the
you.
topic of human capital, social capital, and all of that, how can we influence the continent with all these things? Social capital, of course, we've discussed political capital, and I think that's very, very important. How do we influence our people back home with what we know here to make the right decisions when they go to the ballot box? And do away with tribalism, because we always vote on tribal lines, to be honest, a lot of Africans. And we're not being objective. And so how do we influence all those advantages that we have and the knowledge that we've gained here in influencing decisions back home? And this is some of the things we've talked about. So Vivian, I know you missed a couple of things, but you want to take a moment to look at how Africans in the diaspora can have this influence, because we tend to look down on folks back home when we go there. We don't tell them the full story, and a lot of times it looks like we don't try to implement what we've learned here back home. We seem not to be implementing that. I think that the most important thing that is for us to be doing that. We've come here for good reasons to get everything else that we thought we couldn't get in Africa. And if we have done those, then we have to at least seek to give back. And so Vivian, you want to respond to that?
Yes, Alinko, thank you so much for that question. They always say charity starts from home, right? As a Cameroonian, it's been so disappointing that what we've learned here cannot be implemented back home, because for years, for decades, the diaspora has been sustaining my motherland or my fatherland, however you want to call it.
Right.
And we've been covering up for the government's job. We've been working billions and sending to our people. So it comes a time when rather than, like Dr. Kula said, or my brother Kabanda said, rather than keep feeding and giving fish for people to eat, why don't we empower? But how can you empower when you have a government or when you have leadership that is so incompetent, right? When you have leadership that doesn't care about the people, when you have leadership that is dragging the youth to their graves, right? And what do I mean by this? When you have a leadership that the president himself is so old that they can't even stand on their feet. The leader of the assembly, the speaker of the assembly is so old that they cannot get up on their own. What do you expect? Right. How can these people implement the high-tech policies that are supposed to jumpstart the economy? Right? So these are some of the, you can't invest in a country like Cameroon, because by the time you send a container, for example, from here to Cameroon, only the charges to clear that container, right, makes you feel so discouraged. So you leave from here with billions and you're planning to open up a business. Only the charges that the taxes, the custom duties that you're supposed to pay, right, as a Cameroonian. And now these same duties, these same custom duties and charges are not the same levies that are placed upon foreign nationals. So we keep asking, how is that? So let me even bring it down to this. You leave the diaspora and you're going to your motherland or your fatherland, and at the airport, just looking at you as a Cameroonian, they're looking down on you, right? There's no respect, right? And then you turn around and they see someone with a different skin tone, and you see the level of respect
Mm.
That is where
If you say a different skin tone, it could be a brown person. It could be someone a little browner than you. So what are you doing?
well, I'm talking about they're seeing someone with a white skin tone or Chinese, right?
Or even Lebanese.
Or even Lebanese.
Yeah.
And these are people who are beggars in their own home countries. And then they come to our continent and become kings.
Yes.
So where it starts from is that respect for one another as Africans. How come we don't respect our own skin tone? How come we don't trust our own skin tone? How come we cannot trust each other to the point where we partner in order to make each other grow, like we see the Asians do, like we see the Indians do, like we see the Hispanics do? What is so terribly wrong with us as Africans? What did colonization do to us? These are the questions I keep asking, because as a Pan-Africanist and as a leader, I want us to get to that point where we unite in purpose. We might not be able to see each other ideological wise, but we have one purpose, we have one focus, and that is being able to promote, develop, and bring our continent to the point where our people don't get hungry.
Yeah.
Why is it that the war in Ukraine is affecting us so badly to a point where Africa is facing a hunger crisis,
I think it's affecting Africans more than the Ukrainians themselves.
Thank you. You said it so well. And yet Africa has one of the richest soils.
We have the richest soil in the world.
Thank you. So why are our leaders not empowering our people to go to the farm? Why are we not developing these different farming techniques that can commercialize agriculture? What is going on?
I think for me, the solution lies with the continental Africans in the diaspora.
Yeah.
Collectively, we can say that the Black diaspora, if we're able to organize here, we can help. But Africans who have traveled here, Baker, based on the number you give us, if we are contributing 95 billion in a year,
Yep.
Remittances of Africans, small group of Africans, so in America, 95 billion. Then we have that power to tell any dollar that we send home we have to attach it with some instructions. One,
that's the key.
How you vote. Two, how you conduct yourself, because this group of Africans, our age group, the sandwich group, we have the power to change our narrative. Nobody's going to change Africa's story for us than the African, or the African diaspora. Nobody's going to change our story. But unfortunately, the generation way above us, like I said, they're gone. They're not going to do it. Like you rightly said, Vivian, 93-year-old man, 83 and 70-year-old men who cannot even walk from their own cars. They are sleeping at conferences all the time on the continent and at international conferences. They are sleeping.
Yeah.
How do these people take decisions for us? So I'm not even relying on them. That is why I feel like the onus is on us, especially the ones who have come here and have educated themselves, now doing a lot. We have seen better. And so we have to make sure that every dollar and everything we send back home goes with some instruction, because we are the only ones that can re-engineer what has been done to us. Like you said, in Africa, Indians come to Africa, and we look on them superior than our own selves. We treat them better than our own selves. So something has happened to the brain.
Yeah.
Something has happened to the subconscious of the African on the continent. And so there is not an important conversation to have now than the African in the West knowing better, teaching their own people back home to say, look, You have to learn how to develop your communities. You have to learn how to vote wisely and do not keep voting along tribal lines. Listen to policies. Let's give people, young people our age, to let's give them power. Let's give them the opportunity to rule. Look at the new Prime Minister of England. Look at the president of France. What, 42 years old or 30 something years old when he became 37 when he became president? Correct me if I'm wrong. We have to take charge. Africans must be involved in politics. It's very unfortunate that even young Africans back home who are educated don't want to even associate themselves with politics at all. And if we're not doing that, the old folk will keep ripping us off.
Yeah.
This conversation is very, very passionate, and I know Brother Baker has been patiently waiting to say something.
I mean, it's mind-boggling, the kinds of things that are happening on the continent. Of course, Cameroon has the youngest president in the world, in Paul Biya. But one, we need to appreciate the fact that Africa cannot be saved by the current crop of politicians. Right? And like I said earlier, politicians only play politics. Their game is to lie the voters so that they can keep in power and so that they can be corrupt and enrich themselves. That's primarily what the politicians do. So the hope is going to lie in leadership, not politicians, but leadership. Leadership is Alinko, leadership is Dr. Kula, leadership is Vivian. We have identified the problems and nobody is going to vote us into power. We have to take the responsibility and do whatever is within our means to try and change the status quo. It's so sad. A good friend of mine, Professor P.L. Lumumba, once said that the people with the bright ideas do not have the power. And the people who actually hold the power do not have the ideas. That was very profound. That was very profound indeed. But here's the thing. Rome was not built in a day. We're going to have to start wherever we are with whatever limited means we have. Right now we are on CNN Live. Right now we are on BBC Live. Right? So we need to start from where we are, and slowly but surely we shall go. That's one.
Dr. Kula, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Secondly, like I said, of course, the true change is going to come from the diaspora, both Africans who came here willingly and those who were brought here in chains. We have to synergize. We know better. We've been exposed. We have the knowledge. So we have the responsibility to now pass over the skill sets. We have the responsibility to get capital from here and siphon it back home. Because coming across capital in Africa is next to impossible. Here, during COVID, we had PPP loans. We had SBA loans. We had stimulus checks. In Africa, people didn't have food. They didn't have nothing, right? So we need to figure out how we siphon these things and take them back to the continent. Some hope for Vivian, because I could see she was in a lot of pain. Here is some hope. A few years ago, I was having a conversation with the then American ambassador to Uganda. His name is Ambassador Scott Delisi. I was a young man. I was looking at the situation in the country, leaders, different positions, both ministers and whatever, staying in power too long. And I was wondering, when is it going to come a time when the youth get an opportunity to showcase their leadership skills, their excellence? He told me something that has stuck with me to this day. He said, yes, I understand the votes have failed to change the leadership, but one thing for sure that is constant is mortality. Mortality will inevitably set in. So people who are in the current crop of leadership, believe you me, they're in the evening of their years. They're about to sign up whether they want to or not. So inevitably, a new crop of young leaders is going to take the mantle. But the big question is, are they ready? Are they of sound mind? Or are they going to perpetrate what has already been pre-existing? Now, that's where we come in and make sure that we educate the next crop of leaders. We expose them to things that they do not know are affecting them. For example, this internal bias and self-hate that we have as Black people, right? We need to undo the brainwashing that has been inculcated into our psyche. So that the next generation of young leaders, when they take over, they think differently, they do differently, so that we can get different results. And our biggest asset is the internet.
Yes.
The internet is the ultimate game changer. Why? Right now we are not begging CNN to host us. We are leveraging the internet right now.
That's right.
Right? So we can leverage the internet to tell our stories. We can leverage the internet to preach and teach each other. We can leverage the internet to transfer skills. You don't need to fly from Atlanta to teach somebody who is in Cameroon or Liberia videography or how to do a website, right? And speaking of jobs, the internet has created a whole new genre of jobs. The Philippines has a digital economy that is employing very many young people in Philippines. Philippines is a third world country, but most of them, they're working here in the US without even being here, right? If you need a website designed, you just outsource it to somebody in Philippines, they do it, and you pay them. Why can't we outsource these types of jobs to people in Africa? We have call centers.
Yeah.
You call a company here in the US, literally 90% of the times you'll be speaking to an associate in India.
Right.
A huge chunk of Africa was colonized by the British. We speak better English than even the British themselves. Right?
Sometimes.
So we should be tapping into these opportunities. But this calls for one, skill set. The people back home need to develop the right skill set. Two, mindset. Because I've interacted with the Filipinos. They're amazing. They have a work ethic that some of our African people have not yet developed, right? There's certain things like, time management, those small things. That's where the leadership in the diaspora has to help the people on the continent, the young people on the continent and the diaspora. That is the key to the future of Africa. If the diaspora takes on the leadership and we nurture the young people on the continent, we empower them, we teach them, we give them the skills, we give them the opportunities. Trust me, it's going to be a matter of time before Africa finally rises to its true potential. The current level of leadership is going, inevitably they're going. But we have a responsibility. We have to nurture the next crop of leaders. We need to empower them economically. Economics is very important in this equation. If people are poor, they can't eat right, they can't think straight, they're easy to corrupt, all these things. We need to work on that. And one of the things I've identified is the power of the internet. The internet can open up Africans to do jobs here. We are blessed to be here in the US. Do you know how hard it is to get a visa to come to the US? If it's just for a visit for 1 week, it's next to impossible. A friend of mine got a full ride scholarship to Mercer University. Full ride scholarship. They also were given a job, but guess what? They failed to get the visa to get here. Even in the letter from the president of the university, they were denied a visa to come here. Right? So we have a responsibility, and the future lies in the youth, and we need to harness technology. We missed out on all the other revolutions. Let's not miss out on the digital transformation. Let's not miss out on the fourth industrial revolution. That is our get out of jail card.
Very, very well said, brother. Very well said. And I think, I
wanted to add to that.
Yes, go ahead.
No, I haven't said that, because when you first started the questioning, you said something about what can we here do in the diaspora that can help people on ground make the the right decisions. So one of the things that I've been watching that I loved, those of us here, well, all of us here actually, except for the host, live in Atlanta. So I've been watching Shagun. He's trying to do what he's trying to do. Then you've got Gabe Okoye. You've got all these different people. And we have, as Africans, have finally come together as one people, as one voice. And we put all that we have behind them. Some of us are even going out canvassing for these guys, okay? Because they're running for a political office. So all of us here on this call have been able to strategize and find a way to help them get into power. Now, as we're doing that, the goal here is, okay, when you have all these Africans in these positions, because even Laquita Rick, she's a Liberian and she's in Colorado, she's in the House of Representatives. So we have all these people who can now help to push the African agenda here in America. right? And like
Yeah.
you said about the internet. So young people in Africa can be watching us as we are trying to push these guys into a position of power, trying to help, help our other Africans come behind these guys and vote, not because they of some racial or some how do you say it, some ethnic group that they belong to, right? Gabe is from Nigeria. Another person might be from Ghana. Another person might be from Liberia. But guess what? All of us as Africans coming together and pushing the agenda and pushing that ballot and trying to make sure that that person gets elected into office.
Yeah.
That is what it's about.
Exactly.
And when the young people are watching us do this here in America, they too are empowered to do the same thing in their home countries.
Exactly.
And it doesn't matter if this person is in my ethnic group.
I'm
going to vote for them regardless. You see what I'm saying? Because to me, they represent Africa. They represent us. So that's one of the messages that we need to send into Africa when, it's time for people to vote. This is how we're doing it here in the U.S. We want you guys to replicate this in your countries where you're from. So
absolutely.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that has been very positive for me this year.
Yeah.
As I'm watching all the Africans get behind our brothers, because even a guy is from, I think, Ethiopia, who's running for an office too. And we're all making sure that we vote for those people.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant, because a lot of times you don't have African in high places in federal offices or states at state levels that can vouch for us. And I keep telling friends here, right? Folks who are always skeptical, always, African Americans, they are different from us. We were brought up different. They have their own culture. I'm like, look, if you have an immigration issue, you don't have an African at the federal level who's speaking on your behalf. Right. Chicago and Illinois are known to be immigration sanctuaries. The people that speak on matters of immigration all the time that I know about in the state of Illinois are African Americans. At the federal level, it's African Americans. They don't have to do it. They don't have anything to do with immigration, but they speak on our behalf. And we are the same people. We're not going to their rallies. We're not going to their campaign events. We don't canvass for them. We don't care. If they win, they win. If they lose, they lose. It's like it's like it doesn't concern us. But these are the same people that are vouching for us. And so, yes, how do we get continental Africans into politics? If we hear about some, we must promote. And for cities, counties, and community estates, and who don't have Africans representing them, look out for the Caribbean immigrant who's running for office, or African American who's running for office. Throw your weights behind them. Anyway, so let's get some comments. I know Vivian wants to make a comment too, but we've had these comments come through. We just want to go through a few of them, and then we'll come back to our conversation. Dr. Kula, you remember I told you that 2 hours, right now, all of a sudden we have about we still have a lot.
We're still talking, yes.
Yes.
And we're winding down when we're still talking.
And hopefully we can get some of the things we haven't gotten to speak on out before we leave. So Ola Dijemi says, Ola Dimiji.
Yeah.
Ola Dimiji. My devices are hot from this blunt call to action. Thank you so much. He says, a few critical minds must align. Same brother. And he says, well said, Mr. Baker. He came up with a comment earlier. Thank you all for provoking this conversation. Actionable steps are equally as important. Please advise listeners how we act within the space we have influence on. Okay, and I think that we all get it. So I think maybe Vivian, you all can respond to that. How can they have influence? Could it be because majority of Africans lack self-confidence, although we are loud and vocal? Could this be a cover-up of our weakness in accepting us for who we are? Absolutely. Great point.
Question.
This one is from Lisa. You are speaking the truth, Lisa. Thank you for chiming. Mousy says, it's not always the chasing of a career that makes people send their children back home. Sometimes the child has behavioral problems that is better managed back home. And I think this is to a comment that Vivian made earlier. Thank you so much, Mousy Empress, for chiming in. Wow, blunt dialogue. This is please keep it coming. That is from the same brother. Again, it is historical. In America and Africa, we have to re-educate our people.
Yes.
That's a great point. And then he said earlier, this is for Tao from Tuo Shores. We have no control of the narrative, and so we are trying to create a control now. We are trying to have that control by leveraging internet, like Baker said. Hello, Dr. Kula, Vivian, and Baker. This is from Stephanie Logan. So thank you all for coming up with your for sending your comments in so far. It is 7:44 p.m. Central. You have been watching the Progressive Mind Show. If you're on Facebook, again, we encourage you to share it so we can together, educate our people and uplift and inspire Africans to do better for ourselves, rather than always waiting for somebody to come and change our narrative.
Yes.
Vivian, I don't know if there's any comment that you wanted to pass earlier. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I will begin with decolonizing the brain. That's where it starts, right? That's part of the solution to the many problems that we've been enumerating here.
Right.
We have to decolonize. We have to think positive when we see our fellow brethren.
Yeah.
We have to, because I have had so many instances here when you see your fellow brother or sister, especially from the same country, Cameroon, and they look at you from head to down to your toes, and then they turn around and act like they didn't see you. Right. So you're wondering, and I'm getting excited when I see them, like, oh wow, this is my brother or sister. Hi. And they just look at you and turn around. Why do you think that is? It's because that's colonial mentality, that hate that has been inflicted in us, that mentality grow together. We have to work on that. On political capital, for me it is really hard when I hear everyone says, participate in voting, especially back in our home countries. I will say here, since 1992, Cameroon has not had any fair and clean election since 1992. So how do you expect Cameroonians to travel abroad and trust the system of voting? These are some of the problems that have plagued our fellow Africans, to make them, to the extent that they don't believe in voting. I can't tell you how many Africans I've called to plead with them to go vote in Georgia and put the leaders that we want, the leaders that get our interest. Don't wait only for the presidential election, because the presidential election yes, it is important, but it doesn't affect you like directly.
Locally.
Locally. Vote your leaders who speak for you. Vote your leaders who help make the decisions that affect your pocket, that affect your finances, that help you get to that point where you want to get, right? Now, when you don't vote here, how do you expect to and then turn around and complain and say, oh, well, those we vote for do not listen to us anyway? That used to happen back home while I was there. Here, if I don't vote, I have to hold myself accountable. And if I vote, I am exercising my civic duty. And I am giving that person my vote of confidence that if you don't deliver, I can hold you accountable. So, and that's why I get so involved in politics here, because when we vote here in the state of Georgia, we have almost 9 or 10 African candidates running.
Oh, nice.
African. And we have worked hard to encourage them to vote. And to participate in elections, because when you have yours in, that's the only time you know that when you have someone to call, when you have that immigration problem, when you have a brother who's suffering, you can pick up your phone and call someone. Why do you think it is so easy to incarcerate a Black person here? It is because of that gap that we have. We don't have representation. We don't have people we can call to represent us when we get in trouble, when our kids get in trouble. Right. So we need to do better when it comes to trusting each other, when it comes to supporting each other, be it in the political sphere, in the economic sphere, in business. Otherwise, we need to learn to trust. We need to decolonize.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ooh, internet.
Yeah. I think we're having that lag again. Thank you, Vivian. Great points. I'm sure we're going to get her back soon, but I would like you all to respond to this question here from our brother. Before that, there was something that I wanted to touch on, which is a very important point that Vivian was making earlier, which is, Africans giving up. Oh yeah, our vote doesn't matter in Africa anyway. So it's very. I think that it's understandable when Africans talk like that and act like that. But what I want us to also look at, and what should also inspire us, is the consistency, the persistency of the African American in fighting for civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, fighting for their rights, civil rights, and still fighting to make changes in the social economic system that we all find ourselves in. And when they fight to make changes, guess what? It benefits everybody. It doesn't matter the color of your skin, whether you're white, green, black. Because when MLK, when Dr. Martin Luther King was conversing and was organizing and was talking, the changes that he stood for, the changes that him and his people fought for and died and bled for, did not only benefit Dr. King and his family or his community or only Black people. So, and these people were persecuted for centuries, but and in equal measure, they've been fighting. They've been dying, they've been bleeding, they've been sweating, they've been crying, they've been hurting consistently. And again, in the same measure, they have been going back to fight over and over and over again. In that DNA, you can tell that spirit of resistance, perseverance, and moving forward, regardless of the circumstance. And I think this is what the Africans should also be, this is what the Africans should be inspired by. I think we can learn from this, because one thing I've noticed about Africans, if we take to the street one day and we demonstrate, and the government comes out and puts some bullets in just some warning shots, we go home and we never come back again. Africans, doesn't take a lot for us to just go and sleep. We talk for it, like the brothers. We are loud when we go to parties, we party. But when it comes to fighting for our rights, we give up easily.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the timidity, what they instill in us when we're young. You can't speak when others are speaking, the way we're brought up. So there's so much timidity that has been infused in us to the point where we can't speak for ourselves. We're not a timid people by our nature. We are very strong and bold, and you can see it. But for some reason, continental Africans, that spirit of coming out and organizing the community and having a sense of community and passion to keep going at it regardless of the circumstance, it's not there. Even on the continent, when we are the majority. Here in America, a small group of Black people, very minority, before we all got here, before Africans started coming here in probably the 60s, early 60s. Again, scholar, correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know when the first African came here, but at least 60s, 50s, maybe 50s. I don't know. But before we ever step foot here as Africans, people have been conversing. They have been fighting to date. African Americans, right? And so we Africans also must understand that on the continent where we are the majority, we should be able to keep going and demonstrating and peacefully making our case. It should not matter the number of years that we are not being heard or we have not been attended to by our politicians. We should make it a consistent and persistent thing that until we see change for ourselves and our people and generations after us, we should not rest. And I think these are the spirits that we have to derive from our brothers and sisters in the African American community, or even just know that this is a necessity. We've had African leaders, the Kwame Nkrumahs, the Nyereres, we've had the Mandelas who stood for what is right. And so it's in us on the continent to inspire ourselves to fight for our own rights and conditions that will be better for us as Africans. And again, I just wanted to add this to the conversation. There's a comment that I would like you all to respond to, which is from the brother on the screen. Baker, please.
Action steps equally as important. Okay. We first of all need to liberate our minds. Sister Vivian has been talking about the brainwashing. We really need to liberate ourselves at a mental level. You look at the education system, for example, in Uganda, we still follow the British curriculum that they left back for us, right? We still have lakes and roads named after foreign people, yet we have people of repute who have done things for the country. The largest freshwater lake in Africa is Lake Victoria, but that lake had a local name, Lake Naluvali, prior to that. So it's those small things that we need to address. We need to tap into a new thought process. If you look at people like Malcolm X went to prison. He read a couple of books that freed his mind. Now, when the mind is liberated, you can't tame it. That's where the persistence comes. That's where the resilience comes from. They know I either have to get this or I'm going to die trying. Of what use is it for me to be alive but a slave, right? So I either am free or I'm going to die trying. So we need to liberate ourselves at that mental level. We need to rekindle ties with our African American brothers and learn from them, learn from their struggle. When Ghana was having its independence, Kwame Nkrumah was swearing in. Guess who was there? Front row seat. Martin Luther King in Ghana. He was right there, right? At the inception of the organization of the African Union in 1964.
Yeah.
Guess who was there? Malcolm X.
Yeah.
And he had gone with his organization. I think it was modeled after the Organization of African Union. It was called, I think,
it was
American Union, modeled after the African Union. So we need to rekindle those relationships. We need to work together. We need to learn from each other. We need to support each other. We need to free ourselves mentally. The reason why we're on this platform and having this conversation is because we've had a eureka moment. Because at one point in time, we've also drank the Kool-Aid. We've been in that mindset before. But you get an awakening, you're like, okay, something doesn't add up here, right? And the more you dig, the more you get enlightened. And when you are enlightened, there's a raging fire inside that it's a raging inferno that can't be put out easily. So if we can ignite that fire in the 1.3 billion people on the continent, imagine what that could do. 70% of the population on the continent is below the age of 30. If we can focus only on that 70 alone, ignite the mindset, ignite the passion, the love for self, the love for our culture, African people are great people. Mansa Musa is the richest person in the history of the world. Why is it that Africans are looked at as poor people? We come from opulence, we come from affluence. DR Congo, richest landmass in the world. Why are we labeled as poor? So, Dr. Kula, we need a movie. We need a movie about black. We need a Wakanda remake. And it's so funny. We had Wakanda, the movie, great energy, but we failed to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
People in Africa don't tap into that energy, right? We could have, we had the opportunity to ride that wave, right? Why didn't we have a screening of Wakanda in every city in Africa? We should have made it because
Thank you.
Because our leaders don't get it. Our political leaders don't get it.
This conversation we're having right here, this is Wakanda. This is T'Challa from Africa trying to mend fences with Killmonger from the diaspora, right?
Yeah.
The next Wakanda is coming out on November 11th, next month.
Oh yeah, we'll be ready.
How do we prepare ourselves? How do we ignite that fire? How do we tap into it? There's a lot of there's this young lady, Lupita. Lupita is from Kenya. She was part of that movie.
Yes.
What was done in Kenya as a country to make sure that this thing is blown out of proportion, right?
That's right.
If you research Wakanda, if you go and Google where is Wakanda located, they say Wakanda is a fictitious nation somewhere in East Africa. And it's located somewhere in between Kenya and Uganda. But guess what? People from Uganda, the Swahili name for them is Waganda. There's a school of thought that because of copyright, they had to tweak it a little bit from Waganda to Wakanda. So the question is, what did the Ugandans do about this? You know, how do you tap into this energy? Why don't we get all the African Americans come to East Africa, which has been identified as the Wakanda? Why don't they trap? And it's not just East Africa; it's the whole landmass because we are one people. We've been migrated. The Bantu people migrated from West Africa, from Niger, from Cameroon. Some settled in Congo, some settled in Uganda, all the way to South Africa. We are the same people.
Yeah.
Right? We need to water down these boundaries that we are creating that separate us. We need to realize and appreciate that we are different colors, different shades of black, but we are one people. And we need to move in the same light. Only then can we be able to prosper. The brother who asked for what they can do, first of all, they can start by liking this page on Facebook and YouTube, and then the next step for them to share it. Each one tell someone until we are all liberated. Each one teach one until we are all set. That's the first step.
Absolutely.
The second step is not to lose hope. The third thing is to educate ourselves. They say if you want to hide something precious from a black man, put it in a book.
That's right.
Let's look for books and let's look for the right books. Let's look for the right books that enlighten us, open us to be able to see things from a global perspective. Only then, if we're enlightened, we take the necessary actions that can liberate us.
No, that's powerful. Talking about how we are all continented. Baker, thank you so much for sharing. Talking about how we are connected. I was watching Woman King, and I can understand the language, the dialect they were speaking. And Angelique Kidjo is in that movie. And Angelique Kidjo speaks the same language that I speak in Ghana. And Angelique Kidjo is in Dahomey, from Dahomey, Ghana. And Dahomey, Benin, right? And I realized that the tribe that I'm from in Ghana, the Ewe tribe, have a lineage. It extends all the way to Togo, Benin, and to some Oyo State in Nigeria, somewhere there. So, like you said, it's all we're all connected. We are connected tribally, but we just don't know our history because they didn't teach us. They didn't teach us, and so African youth, this is a time we use the internet to our advantage. There is something called branding, and we have to. These messages we have to indulge in. Sometimes I just pick arguments with my friends because we share all kinds of information on WhatsApp and social media. And I'm like, bro, did you have to post this on Instagram and Facebook? This is the most dilapidating scene or story in Africa that should not be on Instagram. I understand if we have a group of 10 Ghanaians, right, in a WhatsApp group and you share it, we get it. But on Instagram and Facebook, the whole world sees it. Look, in this country, we've had series of school shootings. Not one time would you see on Instagram or anywhere on Facebook pictures of, gory pictures of kids, the shooting or anything floating around, right? You hardly will see it. They censor all these things. And people who are privy to it, even regular citizens who are privy to people who have been shot or whatever, or all these heinous things that goes on in this country, don't put them on Facebook. So African youth and African people, we don't have to put everything. There was a video that I saw of a little child, I think about 5-year-old child, being extremely tortured and brutalized by his own father, I guess, in the video, at least from the video. I don't know if you guys saw it, but he was being whipped with a large cane, and this kid was just like 5 years old. Very gory. Excuse me for those who are listening. I just had to share this story, but it's an example, right? I saw it on WhatsApp, and before I could warn my friends not to post it, the next thing I knew it was on Instagram, and I'm like, this is a baby that has been put through these type of situation by a monster, right? And these things happen everywhere, but not just Africans. Africans are not the only people that indulge in these things. Europe, Asia, everywhere. Right? I think America. I think bad things happen everywhere, but we don't have to put all of it on Instagram and Facebook. We have to know what we share on there, right? Like you said, conversations like these and others. PL Lumumba and people who are speaking to the core needs of Africans and how we can be uplifted. Those are the things that we should be engaging and freely sharing. But we have to have some sense of I don't know if it's protection or I don't know the better word for it, but that thing that says that not everything that needs to go on Instagram and Facebook. Very, very important.
Brother Lincoln, we just don't need to wash our dirty linen in public.
Thank you. Yes, I just didn't want to use that phrase because I didn't want to use it because people use it all the time. I'm talking to my fellow Africans here, so I want to say it literally. We are literal. So thank you for packaging it well for us. But I like to talk to my people direct because that's just who we are and how we accept things sometimes. And I'm really, really excited that we've had this conversation. It's 8 p.m., but this is our platform. Like you said, we are now on CNN, so we can have some. If you guys have a little bit of wiggle room, I want to know what's going on. I mean, let's the world know what's going on in Atlanta. If you have some events coming up, what's going on? Anything that you want to share with us? We want to know the energy that's going on within the African community in ATL. Dr. Kula, you haven't spoken in a while.
Okay, I've just been listening. Wonderful conversation. Well, one thing I do want to say, the lady earlier, Stephanie Logan Setro, talking about how we're all connected. She's actually from Jamaica, and she is the president, if you will, of our Liberia Chamber of Commerce, which I love because her husband is a Liberian and she's from Jamaica. But she's coming to the community. And she's made the community hers because that's what we're supposed to do. And she reaches out to other communities as well. So even though it's a Liberian Chamber of Commerce, we have all the other groups that we engage with, even TALPAC, I think, where Vivian comes, it's part of her group. So all of us come together and we're able to do things together as a unit. And now we're talking about releasing people to come into Africa and invest because, of course, we're Chamber of Commerce, we're pulling different groups of people to come into Africa, not just Liberia, but also Nigeria, Ghana, everywhere else, and invest. Because the goal, like I keep saying, at the end of the day, is that we invest in the continent. We create an atmosphere where the youth will thrive, right? So that's our ultimate goal. And if that is our ultimate goal, it doesn't matter where we're from. Yeah, it only matters where we're going.
Right.
All right. So where we're going is to Africa to take back what is rightfully ours. I'll say that over and over and over again. It does not belong to the Chinese or the Lebanese or the Indians. It belongs to us. And the only way that we're going to go get it, our minerals and all our good stuff, is if we come together as a unit. So all the fun things and all the great things we're doing here in Atlanta with the the campaigning, helping with the canvassing, trying to put all of our African leaders in a position of power so they can lobby for us and do whatever else we need to do. At the end of the day, it leads to one goal, and that goal is to take it home. Right. So that is what I would like to leave with you guys this evening. As Africans, let's, recondition our minds, like Vivian mentioned earlier, and let's do what is right. Let's get back to Africa, what is rightfully Africa's, and which will be us, for children coming home and doing what is best for our continent.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Vivian, I know you have been doing a lot. There are exciting times for you with the politics, with elections coming up in November and then subsequently in February. So I know you're very busy. So, but also with regards to your galvanizing the community, the African community, or even the diaspora altogether, are there any things that you want to share with everybody?
So thank you so much for that question. It's election on our minds right now. Nothing is more important than getting in office who really gets our back, who really cares about us, right?
Yeah.
A few weeks ago or a month ago, we celebrated the African Immigrant Heritage Month, right, which was proclaimed last year by the state of Georgia. That's a huge step ahead, coming from a Republican state, acknowledging that we Africans have contributed a whole lot and are still contributing and will still be a great and an integral part of the state. That proclamation was done last year for the month of November. So going forward, we are going to be celebrating the month of Immigrant Heritage Month, right, within the state of Georgia. That was celebrated in a big way. And I think that is a step forward for us to, as Africans and immigrants, to start collaborating, to start promoting each other, to start looking forward to creating business partnerships through One Voice Africa, because I am a Pan-Africanist. I was African first before a Cameroonian. And yes, because we all were Africans before the way to separate and divide and make us feel from different countries, we're from different this, and that's what results to a lot of the identity crisis that we have. And yet when you look at it, you turn around and realize that we still fall back to our same colonizer for answers to our questions. How is that? How come we cannot find our own answers? Because like you said, when you look at social media, it's filled with so much negativity, right? Someone will rather not watch this show right now where they're going to learn a lot of things, but they'll go watching irrelevant stuff that will not improve their lives in any way, that will not affect their lives in any way. So let's, first and foremost, let's learn to read a lot. Let's learn to watch what impacts us positively. Let's learn to just focus on us for once, because we've been running behind shadows, forgetting that the impact that we create in each other's lives, humanitarian wise, to me, that's what matters a lot. That's what makes meaning to my life. It is not how much money you make. It is not the wealth you accumulate, because you're not going to take any of these stuff back wherever we're meant to go to. From those you were created, those you return, and with nothing. We came with nothing. We will go back with nothing. I think every single one of us need to sit back and think how much contribution we can, or how much impact we can create on each other before our days come. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brother Baker.
Are these closing remarks?
Yes, closing remarks, and then let's chip in any exciting projects that you're working on in the Atlanta area when it comes to the African diaspora.
My would be closing remarks. We as Africans from the continent, we have a very huge responsibility, a huge weight of all these discussions. The solutions lie with us. because our brothers on the continent, most of them don't know any better. Both the youth and those in political positions, they don't know any better. So we have a responsibility. We are all ambassadors. Everybody here is an ambassador for Africa. We need to tell the African story. We are the ones who understand that we don't need to, showcase the bad side of Africa. But in the same vein, we have a responsibility to tell the rest of the world who we really are, what Africa really is. We need to rebrand, break stereotypes, right? We are closer to the people here, both white or black. We are the closest people that they get access to from Africa. So we have a responsibility to tell them our story from the African perspective. That's one. Two, we need to rekindle our relationship with the African Americans. In the earlier segment, we talked about the issue of the bad blood that is still brewing down under, to do with slavery and the issue that some Africans did participate in that process. That is something that has never really been addressed, and it has always been an encumbrance towards our romance with the African Americans. So I believe we need to take the onus on ourselves to create maybe some major conference where we sit and talk about these things.
Yes.
They pour out whatever it is that hurts them. We let them know that, hey, if there were mistakes made in the past, we need to own those mistakes and apologize. But ultimately, we need again to realize, despite the fact that we have our differences, we are one family and we have bigger fish to fry. We are stronger together than we are apart.
Yes,
we bring opportunities to the table. So it's imperative that, yes, we might have made some mistakes in the past, or our ancestors might have made mistakes in the past, because it's not you and I, right?
Right.
Our ancestors must have made mistakes in the past, but we can't let that define the present narrative. We need to get to the table, address those issues. I've had interactions with African American brothers, and they've talked about things like, I don't know whether you're familiar with the term akata. So
Yes.
apparently the term akata is a derogatory term, especially from people in apparently Nigeria, Yoruba and Igbo. Apparently it refers to them as wild cats, as cotton pickers. I don't know the exact true definition of it, but they get it to be an extremely derogatory term towards them. We need to address those things. When people coming from the continent, you're told, stay away from the blacks, they're drug dealers, they're going to impregnate your daughters and run away. Address those types of things. We need to have conversations. I've had conversations with African Americans who say that we people from the continent, we feel we are better than them. We have that type of superiority complex, right? These are conversations that we need to have. Why do they feel that way? Maybe it's the way we talk, or we need to address it. Sometimes it might be a misconception, right? They might misread, or possibly we might be doing something wrong that needs to be brought to our attention and addressed. So we need to address those things that are keeping us apart. Then we create a united front, backed up with $1.6 trillion, backed up by the resilience and experience in fighting for civil rights and creating better circumstances, backed up with the level of education, the technology and exposure. If we get all that and we form a unified front, we can be able to go and change the continent.
That's right.
Thank you. And
Absolutely.
you kind of heard a video playing, but I'll play that video again, my brother. Everything you said is perfect. I love it. And I thank God that there are a lot of people that are thinking the same lines. And my prayer and hope is that one day we'll get to a place where presidents, kings of Africa would open up their kingdoms and their lands and freely give lands for free to our brothers and sisters here. Because everything you've talked about has been my fight, my campaign, for the past 6 years, at least in Chicago. And these are some of the works that we've done, because a lot of Africans have this feeling. We develop a lot of Africans in the diaspora, continental Africans in the diaspora do this. And so, yes, there is these deep hurts. You remember I said we have these hurts and this animosity against each other. And as Africans, like you rightly said, brother, we've been speaking this. I think I don't think we are like-minded, because I completely agree with everything you're saying. And so we as Africans need to take charge. We have to extend our hand. We have to take lead when it comes to bridging the gap in the diaspora. In this conversation of bridging the gap, the African has to lead.
Yes.
Because a lot has gone down. A lot has happened. And what happened to us was not only physical, it's spiritual. And so there are curses lingering around us as Black people in the diaspora, because our ancestors went through a lot. And so how do we heal that? How do we spiritually bridge that spiritual gap? How do we come up with events and programs that can spiritually heal us and emotionally get us to a place where we can begin to love and appreciate and respect each other? And once we start connecting that way, doing business is automatic, because now we trust, now we are loving, now so these hurts are no more. So I'm going to play this video which is a king that we brought from Africa, Progressive Mind Show. And we started this concept of the exchange ceremony in 2019, when it was a year of return. It was a year of return, and also 400 years in this country of slavery in this country. And we realized that there was a big wave of coming together of an era that was ending and a new one beginning for Black people in the diaspora. So the exchange ceremony was created as a platform that can bring Africans, Caribbeans, African Americans, Latinx together to engage in a ceremony that would enable us to interact and heal. The foundation of Black people, our culture everywhere, is our dance, food, and our fashion. Okay. We express ourselves anywhere you go. Black people, if you're not doing anything, at least when it dancing, we have it in different forms. It's just at the crux of everything we do. And so if we as Black people in the diaspora can come together and share this common foundation of our culture, we can begin to heal and see that even though our movements and the way we are now, the way we dress are different, it's all tied in. And so that is the essence of the exchange ceremony. And this year we decided to engage in the do the event again, because we missed 2 years due to COVID. And so this year we decided to bring a king from Africa, because of what you just shared, Brother Baker, that our kings and our queens partook in slavery. A lot of conversations, people say, oh, no. There's no way. And they are facts. They are facts. Our kings, some of them have agreed. They know. And these are the hard truths that we have to accept. So our kings have to come here, because after 400 years, our kings and queens did not come. Our ancestors didn't come here to look for their brothers and sisters. They didn't follow up. We didn't look for our brothers and sisters that left the shores. Our ancestors did not do that. These are our brothers and sisters, the Caribbeans and the African Americans and Latinx, South Americans. These are literally our blood. And so there's a need for us to reach out to them. And who is best to do that than our traditional leaders? And so we thought that there was a need, because of that need, we had to bring a king here from Ghana, from Africa. We got one from Ghana, to honor Reverend Jesse Jackson, to crown him as a legitimate African king, to restore that which had been taken away from them.
Yes.
And then to honor the African American community for everything they stood for and have done for us as continental Africans to benefit of over all the years. So here is the speech of the king during the exchange ceremony, which is going to be happening next year. So this is a big collaboration that you all, Dr. Kula, Baba, Vivian, we are bringing you all. This is a global event that happened July, this past July. We had kings and queens from coming Africa. And next year is going to be more kings coming. So this is the speech from the king.
Gentlemen, the international community, my name is Togbi Nyaho Tamaklo VI of the Anglo Kingdom of Ghana. a kingdom that stretches from Ghana through Togo, Benin, and to Nigeria. I stand before you from Africa, recognizing that this moment is much bigger than any one of us. I stand before you humbled to be in the presence of one of the greatest civil rights icons of the world. I stand before you recognizing the invaluable work of people of African descent to the development of the entire world, and in particular to African Americans for the many, many years of toil and suffering that you have undergone. I come before you with a plea of atonement. I come before you to say, we are sorry. We are sorry for the complexities of 1619, the movement of millions of you down to the Americas to work for free for many years, to develop this land into a superpower, because it's your money, which was not paid to you, that contributed to the development of this country. There is no iota of fear in any one of us, recognizing the moral authority of each one of us to stand and fight for freedom and to fight for our identity, which was taken away from us. And today, many of us and many of you suffer from years of deprivation of that true identity. I come to bring you back to Africa. I come to offer you land. I come to offer you opportunities. I come to offer you a sense of belonging. There is no amount of gold that can ever repair the damage done to your souls. But we can, in a human way, hold your hands and say, we are truly sorry. And that you can go back into your homes knowing very well that you've done your best. The rest is for us to reach out to you. In 1884, in Germany, after many years, almost 250 years, after you've been taken away and brought to the Americas to work in the cotton fields under inhuman conditions, in 1884, another complex situation was set behind you. Our land was divided among many countries. Our human resource, our gold, manganese, timber, millions of our resources were taken away from us, and we were left deprived in the land of Africa. These two things, slavery and colonialism, the two greatest evils of humanity. It is against this background that you and I must appreciate the work of Reverend Jesse Jackson. The fight to restore the human dignity of each and every one of us. The fight to bring freedom to each and every one of us. The fight to bring justice for all of us. The Reverend Jesse Jackson and many others, Martin Luther King, Marcus Garvey, Rosa Parks, Nelson Mandela, Patrice Lumumba,
Yes.
Kwame Nkrumah, Nyerere, Kaunda, and many, many, many more of us have laid down our lives for this moment, a moment of unity and harmony between the two worlds, Africa and the African diaspora in America. Today is the moment. Today is a day of celebration. We honor the tireless work of the Reverend himself, Reverend Jesse Jackson. The moral compass of the international community. The man who broke boundaries, visited several times in South Africa to break back the back of apartheid, to set free Nelson Mandela. His work cannot go unrewarded. There's not too much we can do, but the very little we've done today will give him some sense of peace. There's no need to struggle for any more affirmation, but to walk away from here knowing that the world loves him for just being who he is, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. It is against this background, ladies and gentlemen, the international community, that I proclaim the first king of the African diaspora, the Reverend Jesse Jackson. It is with the blessings of the chiefs and leaders of the international community that we recognize a moral leader.
Okay, so I think that I just want you all to see the the gist of it. And to the point that you made, lastly, Baker, the Akata thing is real, and here it is. So since 2017, I've been talking about this, that this word is very derogatory. I have had countless fights among fellow Africans. And Brother Baker, I'll show you those communications back and forth on this matter. The simple fact that this is a derogatory word that was coined by, I don't know which Nigerian, but it's a Nigerian word. It's a Yoruba word, and it's derogatory. It stands for a very, it's just a derogatory word, and it's here. It's on a document that I created, and I have been trying to inform fellow Africans that we don't have the moral right. We don't have any right at all to call another human any derogatory term. More importantly, people that look like us, people that came here and built this country and helped build this country, all of that. We don't have, there's no reason for that. Yes, maybe back in Africa, we can decide to do, indulge in tribalism and do things against each other. But we are here in America, and we had no basis for doing that. And so this has been the campaign, my brother. So to the point that you made, it is uncalled for. It is unnecessary that whether African Americans calling us Buddhist crutches or we calling them Makata or anybody calling it is very, very unnecessary. It should be an end to all of this. Understanding that our race is struggling. The Asians, Middle Eastern, and Europeans, they are moving forward. Actually, Elon Musk is trying to send the first group of people to colonize Mars. And we are here calling each other names. It's the least thing we have, the least thing we can indulge in. And so, as educated Africans here, this is our message, that the essence of education is to bridge the gap. And so let's use what we have learned positively in making our society a better place. So I know you probably have not read it, but I wanted to put it on the screen, Brother Baker, to let you know that your point is very valid, and this is what we have to be doing, and this is the campaign. I'll send it to you privately so you can share among other African community groups, so we can all understand that together we stand. And so thank you all for coming. I know that I've taken, this is the longest show I've done. Goodness, 2.5 hours. Jeez. But it's worth it, and I really appreciate you all. So Brother Baker, Dr. Kula, and Vivian, I think that we should all I would like to, let's stay in touch, let's stay connected, let's pull the powers next year. Let's bring the global African community together in Chicago. We're bringing more kings. This one was just one king. We're bringing more kings now. Okay. And let's show our royalty. Let's restore the culture and royalty. And let's bridge the gap in the most massive way. And so let's keep doing a great work. And I really want to appreciate you all for the tenacity, the sacrifice, because it's not easy to work within the community, especially with Africans. We are great people. All that we are saying is not to put the African down. No, but there are some things that we are struggling with. As great as we are struggling with some things, and we have to face it head on and do and tackle these things. So it's challenging to deal with Africans, but we will thrive. And I really want to commend you all for a great work. Now, having said all of this, I still have to give you guys the opportunity to say a thing or two if you want to. Dr. Kula, Baker, Vivian, anything else?
Yes. I just want to say, oh my God, the speech from our king, it moved me.
Yeah.
I was tearing up because that's one of the fights I've had to carry out here within Georgia, trying to educate. I cry when I say this, trying to let people know, trying to let our folks know how much damage our costs back then, and they're still costing.
Mm.
What did this continent do wrong that we cannot be blessed with good leaders? Because every single thing, if you think about it, we've faced back historically right until present day is coming from our leaders, right? Our kings decided to trade our brothers and sisters for liquor, common liquor, for guns, and mirrors. How low was that? And we expect our African American brothers not to get upset. We expect them not to hate us. We have a lot of bridges to build between us and our African American brothers and sisters. We have a lot of peacemaking to do. We have a lot of apologies. And I've always said this. African American community might
Today, I think Vivian is competing with her internet, or her internet is competing with her. It's either.
Yeah, but to her point, I always do a talk on bridging the gap between African and African Americans. I've been very successful in that light, and I think more of us need to. One of the young people asked the question, what can we do in our small spaces? I keep the conversation going, because I do this thing at least once or twice a year where we show a film and then we talk about how we bridge the gap between African and African Americans. Because of what happened in Liberia when the African Americans were taken there, they only came with what they knew. And so the exchange between them and the local people was not the best. And it led to many, many years of just turmoil. So we want to make sure that as we invite African Americans to come back home, and celebrate with us, we want to make sure that we do bridge those gaps, because their spaces are still there. We do need the apologies. We do need all those things going. So the key thing is, in each of our little spaces, let's continue the conversation of bridging the gap between Africans and African Americans. It's going to make all the difference in the world.
Awesome. I'm going to bring your team back on this conversation. If you go on if you're on Progressive Minds YouTube channel, you type the Diaspora Convo. This is an ongoing series that we have here. So we've had several of them. And so, but I would like to get your team back with some African Americans, Caribbeans, and Latinx folks, South Americans. We probably might have like 8 people on the set, but it's a family thing. We'll even if you have to go 2-3 hours, that's fine. You have to deal with this thing. So thank you so much for the time. This feels so family, and I am glad that we had this conversation. Thank you for your time, the sacrifice to spend 3 hours, almost 3 hours on this show. I know you have things to do. Vivian, I think we'll have to call. Maybe we'll have a partnership with Verizon or T-Mobile, so they can connect you well. I think you're messing with AT&T. That's you've been messing with AT&T.
But all jokes aside, thank you too, Ms. Alingo. Thank you for a wonderful conversation this evening.
We're playing a lot of politics here, wherever we are, and they're telling me we can't get fiber for whatever reason, but trust me, we're gonna get it done. Thank you so very much, and I can promise you we will replicate what you're doing in Chicago, because it is very important that we start building those bridges. When you started talking, I know California has been doing exactly what you're doing, and I think that's what we need to do in every single city. So thank you so much. We will exchange notes. We will do this. We will support each other in building those bridges, because it is very necessary. That is the only way redressing these problems. When you want to fix a problem, you have to first of all acknowledge the problem and say sorry. That's where it starts, and that's where we need to start. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Brother Baker, I know they've spoken, so you have to speak.
I was just looking at the cast, and it's interesting. Aliko is from Ghana, Vivian is from Cameroon, I'm from Uganda, Kula from Liberia. This feels like the Organization of African Union in session.
Yes, yes.
I was thinking the same thing.
and the person that put us together is from Nigeria, Saeed.
Yes, exactly. That's right.
Saeed, God bless you, man, wherever you
Yes,
are.
thank you, Saeed.
So this right here should be a message to people back home in the continent that yes, we are one people and we can work together, and we need to work together.
Yeah.
It's in our best interest that we work together, because I'll tell you what's happening in Cameroon is not very different from what's happening elsewhere on the continent, right? What's happening in Liberia is not any different from what's happening elsewhere on the continent. What's happening to the African American community, which is a different tribe of Africans, is pretty much the same. What's happening in Jamaica. So it's imperative that we reach out to each other, know what challenges those communities have. We break bread and figure out how to solve our problems. The Chinese have their own problems.
Yeah.
Americans have their own problems.
Okay.
We can't expect them to come and take care of us. We have to do the heavy lifting. If at all they ever come to help us, they need to find us on the way and not in the way.
Okay.
Absolutely. And put your information in the chat. I'm putting mine there, so we can keep this going. So we want to thank all our audience for chiming in. We need to fix our calling device. Our studio line is still going through challenges. It's all about paying our bills. So remember to donate to us if you're watching. Again, we are 501c. If you go on the progressivemindshow.com, you can always donate to us. And for those of you who want to watch this video again, it's on the Exchange Ceremony website. TheExchangeCeremony.com. TheExchangeCeremony.com. If you go on that website, it's there. You can watch this video. You can watch look at some of the pictures. And these is what we're doing. So we're gonna be doing this in massive ways. We're gonna be getting to a lot of collaboration, and I want to thank so this is what I need, a production assistant. See, I'm doing everything. So if you're listening to us and you have time to volunteer here, please come to our aid. We need you. The exchangeceremony.com is the website. I just put it there as well. So so the work is huge. We need everybody. We need people to keep to do this. So please make sure you are paying attention and you are lending your time. My family, I don't feel like leaving. I'm so connected to you guys now. Mr. Kula, Baker, and Vivian. Because of you, I think I should be. I've been to Atlanta maybe 2 or 3 times.
Come again.
I'm coming. We have to sit down. We have to go to that. There's a restaurant, very famous restaurant somewhere. Is it Nigerian or Ghanaian?
Buka. Is it Buka?
Ike's.
Ike's tropical, yeah.
Ike's.
Yes,
it'll be our treat. Tell us when you're coming.
We'll treat you. Good. We have to go. You have to get together there and have some, great time. All right, my brothers and sisters. Thank you once again. My regards to your families. Thank your families for allowing you to stay on here for all this time. Tell them I appreciate them. God bless you. This has been the Progressive Mind Show. Remember, next week Wednesday, 6 to 8 p.m. we shall be here again. And I want to remind everybody that November, this elections, let's all contribute. Let's all be part of it. Remember, to whom much is given, much is required. This has been your host, Alinko, once again. Thank you so much for your time and keep building. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.